1 2 3 1 2 3.
We're good.
Double check. D-O double G. Test.
So I got a
Testicle. Test.
I got a confession to make.
Go for it.
I'm a little jealous.
Of?
The fact that you're watching Spider-Man movies with your grandparents, but
I don't feel like you share the same respect for MCU movies as I do. I don't
why
think-
would you say that?
Because I just don't. I think if you're gonna watch MCU movies, and this is one of the mistakes that I made, you like have to sit down and watch the entire saga.
And you think that your grandfather can sit down and watch an entire
We
movie?
don't even watch it in his language. It does. I don't watch it with him. He sits there and listens to his Italian music, and I sit there and enjoy the movie. He doesn't understand anything that's going on. I have to pause.
That's
every
that's
25
that's what
seconds
I'm
to
saying,
listen.
man. I've seen every other movie. I saw until Spider-Man faded away. Which one was that one? And Iron Man was like I don't want to go. Which one was that one?
That was Infinity War. But you don't like you. I don't feel like you relate to the.
What do you
MCU
mean?
as
What
much
does
as
that
I do.
even mean?
Like you didn't grow up with it like I did.
What are you talking about, bro? I grew up in the days of UPN 44
If they made-
original Spider-Man, dog.
If they made, okay, so we all know like DC tried to make their own Infinity Saga, which was like Batman and Superman, and they had the Wonder Woman movie. Like it's all in the same cinematic universe, but it failed because all the movies suck. I mean, I thought Batman vs Superman was good, but that's a hot take, right? But
I actually liked it.
they said it's a hot take, but I liked that movie. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was bad. It wasn't necessarily a great movie.
Listen, it's a known fact that MCU is the leader in the movie. DC has not figured it out yet. They've tried, right? I mean, they did. Okay, the best thing they ever did was get Christopher Nolan to make 3 Batman movies because
They were amazing.
out of all the movies, and there's like
It's just-
1,500 of them that they've made about Batman, those are allegedly, and it could be discussed, but in my opinion, I think most people would agree with this, probably the best 3 Batman movies ever made. Storyline and everything. But as a whole, MCU they have the formula.
Dude, I've seen every single Infinity Saga, every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie ever, and I love they don't miss. Look at Rotten Tomatoes, look at IMDb, look at the box office, dude. None of their movies miss, not a single one. And I love DC. I love the characters. I freaking love the Joker. They have the best villains, and I like Batman and how like realistic he is. Like he doesn't have any superhuman powers, but he has freaking millions of dollars. Like that's not, like that's realistic. You feel like, that it's possible for that to happen in the real world. Unlike you have Doctor Strange. Like that could never happen, or the Transformers. But my point is that DC misses too much. They miss. Their movies don't always slap. If I buy a $30 ticket to go watch Avengers Endgame, I know for a fact that it's gonna like hit super hard.
So again, that leads me back to my original question. Why wouldn't you want me to watch it?
Why wouldn't I want you to watch it? Because there's like, when you watch a Marvel movie and you don't like, it's, people say, dude, like they miss the days where a movie was just standalone. You watch a movie, you walk into the theater with no prior knowledge, and you walk out and just entertainment. MCU movies aren't like that. You have to watch the entire thing beginning to end. You have to watch all the other.
I'm missing one movie,
27
dog.
You're not though. But when was the last time you watched an Avengers movie?
Like 2 years ago.
Yeah, you gotta like, you just gotta know. You gotta relate. You have to like be in the universe in the moment, and then once you watch Endgame, then you can continue on watch whatever one. I started watching Spider-Man: Far From Home, and it's been years since I saw any. Well, it's been like a year since I saw Avengers Endgame. I saw Spider-Man: Far From Home, and I was like, this is probably the most, like, it's a superhero movie. It's a Spider-Man movie, and I'm like, why do I feel like
All right.
I'm questioning the universe right now? and I just watched a superhero movie. So I'm like, I gotta watch the rest of them. So now I'm going back and I'm watching the rest of them with somebody who doesn't understand even the language.
Yeah, I
that
don't
it's in.
understand. Why wouldn't you be like, yo, pops, let's watch 38 movies back to back?
Well, I would, but the thing is that, well, I started the last weekend that I came over, and you were on vacation. I totally would have came back and been like, let's slap on the 27 Infinity Saga movies.
Then the next weekend you come, we're doing a marathon.
We gotta watch them all.
We'll watch them all from Friday night to Sunday afternoon, because I refuse to be let out of something, dog.
I'm telling you, man. I'm glad that's a plan. It's a date.
So let's get deep for a second, because some people have already watched our, when we did a couple of Wise Distortion podcasts together, and it had some really good feedback as far as, oh, that's a really smart kid. Not, but whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
You guys have a great connection, blah, 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 blah. And I think that a lot of people, especially if they're, by the way, and I'm sorry to interrupt this real quick, but I just remember what I wanted to say when you were talking about the universe and like all the Marvel movies related and all that stuff. Did you know that Stephen King has written like 62 books, I think?
62 of them?
And he has somehow made them all kind of relate to one another?
See, I don't understand how somebody does that when it comes to like Marvel Cinematic Universe books, TV shows. How do they have something?
He writes himself in some movies, though.
From the first book or the first movie, how does it somehow tie into the last movie before they've even had the idea? Like, how does that even...
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know. Like, you watch the first Iron Man movie, and somehow it relates back to Endgame, and you're like, they didn't even think this was gonna get like how did they...
Well, as a writer, let me tell you that sometimes, again, this is not stuff that you think about from the beginning. It's stuff that you learn about. It develops as you're writing a story, and you don't know what the ending, you don't know where it's gonna go, and then one day you wake up and you're like, oh my God, the gods have blessed me with the whatever it may be. So it's not something that definitely happens overnight. But anywho, going back to what I was saying, I think a lot of people that listen know a little bit about my story and my, if they read my book and all that stuff. But we've never really, never really talked about our story and where we come from and all that stuff. And it's, I think it's gonna help people to really understand what makes us who we are. Because I think we have something that a lot of parents wish they had with their kids and vice versa. And unfortunately, for what I'm seeing on TikTok, there's a lot of parents struggling with their kids, not only because they don't understand their kids and they don't communicate with their kids and they don't...
Turning or talking to you? All right. Continue.
This is something that I'm seeing a lot as well. Is, I have a couple of friends that they're getting divorced, and the opposite parent is actually using their kids as leverage to inflict pain on the other parent. And I'm like, how do you even love your children when you're using them as tools?
Tools to like make the other parent like
correct
seem lower,
like a bad person, to make them suffer, to criticize them, whatever it may be. And I'll start with this story. We've been through a lot, right? Like from the very beginning, me and your mom got divorced when you were what, 4 years old?
Something like that.
And then your mom got remarried, and then shortly after I got remarried. And then things were fine for a while, and then another divorce happened. I got divorced again, and I got sick, and it was messy for a long time, And correct me if I'm wrong, but even through all that, we kind of, we didn't let that stuff. And when I mean we, I mean it was effort on both of our sides, right? We didn't let that hinder our relationship. And I remember that one time I was just dating my future next wife. We weren't married yet or anything, and it was a Sunday, and I had to take you home. And I don't remember why, dude, but we were running like 10 minutes late. We're a little late, so I'm like rushing to get you there. You're like 5 or 6 years old, and by the time I get there, that your mom opens the door, let's just say that she was a little upset. A little upset that I was 15 minutes late. She said a whole bunch of things in front of you, and like she really made me upset, which shouldn't have happened, but it did. And I made a big mistake.
I do not remember this story.
Oh man. I told her you're a bitch.
Oh snap! And then the world crumbled after that.
No,
Nothing
this
went
is
good.
what happened, dude. And it was a good lesson for me. Because then she just goes, Samuel, get inside the house. But when I looked at you, dog, your face of fear and anxiety and anger and confusion of what was going on.
And that's actually my superhero origin story right there, folks. My parents
Literally
didn't get shot or anything like that, but they had an
Why do you wear a
altercation.
cape? He called her a bitch.
My dad was late getting me home. My mom got mad. My dad says some suggestive terms, and then I ended up becoming the next Batman. That's my story. All right,
So that face, bro, those you I mean, not anymore, but you had like this big eyes back then, and those you were just like,
you were so adorable. I don't know what happened, honestly.
and that's when I told myself, I was like, no matter what happens between his mom and I or anything else, I will never get that on him. Never get that on him. Because in my opinion, that's what a parent's supposed to do, especially at that age. Is supposed to protect his kids, no matter what's going on in their life, whatever disagreements, confusions, fights, the kids got to be protected from that. And that was the only time, and you might remember another one if I don't, but I think that was the only time that I ever had an argument with your mom in front of you, And from then on, it was just a really big fight at making sure that you were okay. Then I get divorced for the second time, and that was also a big deal because you were fond of my second wife. You guys had a really good relationship. And
I take pride in the fact that I don't make bad relationships with anybody, hardly anybody. I try. You know what I mean? If I meet somebody, especially if I live with somebody, it's like, if you're gonna hold grudges, dude, like, you're torturing yourself at that point, honestly. So I try to have good relationships with everybody. But yes, I did have a very good relationship.
So that was painful on you because not only did you, and we tried to make it work for a while, right? Like, even after we got divorced, you would see her and all that stuff. Things happen, maybe for the best, maybe for the worst. I don't know, dude. You can never look back and think, did I make a mistake or not? You just gotta move forward. But these are all things that, believe it or not, as a young person, affect you. Sometimes even subconsciously. And at the same time, we were able to maintain a relationship. And let me say something, people, right now, to the people that think that being a parent is not being a friend. If you're in 2020 and you think that you don't have to be friends with your children, that you don't have to understand what they're doing, what they're going through, who they're talking to online, who's bullying them, who's telling them crap, you're going to have a problem on your hands.
I think it's 100% a thing of just trust, honestly. It's a thing of, is somebody able to come home one day and be like, yo, this is what's going on, and not have to, I think that you have people who can't even, like, come home and be like, failed a test, or I did this, without parents grounding them, or I don't know if anybody grounds anymore, but grounding them, or making everything feel like it's their fault. I think like parents, and like you said, like there's people on TikTok, there's like so many people that I like, that you see, and you see their parents are like so abusive towards them, and especially it's mentally abusive. Some of them are even physically abusive. And when somebody can't like, when somebody comes home and they can't feel like they can say like anything that's on their mind, say like, oh, or feel like they made a mistake, or some kids feel like they made a mistake even when it's something that they can't affect, like something that they can't control. If a kid, like the big one that you talk about, especially with families who are like really religious, is kids who are like homosexual, or they have some like sexual, like they're feeling,
that's another thing that we had,
some homosexual tendencies. They feel like they can't come home and come out to their parents because they'll get mentally abused or physically abused.
That's another thing that we had to go through, not your homosexual tendencies, but the fact that we came from a strictly religious family, that, and I can't talk too much about it because even talking about it might make me lose my family. That's how deep this is. And we had to really detach ourselves from that in order to make this kid grow like a normal human being. And that was difficult. That it still is. So we had issues on all fronts. I think we both have PTSD from it. But
it's one of those things that you see, like especially in like super strict religious, like by the book, literally by the book families, you have those super strict parents. And I'm so freaking grateful that even though I technically grew up with two somewhat religious parents, obviously times have changed, but even though I grew up with two somewhat religious parents, like I still feel like on both sides of the spectrum, I always felt like I could just say what's on my mind, say anything that I felt. Even like, that's why I never held back in, years ago when I came home and I was like, I could say anything. I could come out, I could say that I was bullied at school, I could say that I failed a test, and on both sides I feel like I'm not going to get mentally scarred for life. And I feel so bad for kids who don't have what I have, and I'm so grateful every single day, dude. I'm not even just saying that. Like, I feel so bad that there's honestly kids out there that feel like they cannot say their mind at home. Like, that the one place that you should feel safe at, and when kids go to school or they go somewhere that's not their house and that's their escape, oh my god. My house is my escape. Both of my houses, that's my escape. If I'm having a bad day at school, if I'm having just a bad day in general, I know that when I'm with my family, like, I'm safe. That's the safe point. That's base. A lot of people don't have that. They feel almost like they don't have a safe place. They don't have a house. They have a house, but they don't have a home. They don't have a real connection with their family. So I'm really grateful. I'm so grateful every single day. And it hurts me when I see people who don't have what I have. Honestly, I'm not just saying that. I hurt for people who have bad situations. I really do. And I hope that they get better.
It takes a lot of work. It's not easy, parents. It's not easy to be open-minded when you don't understand something, right? And we live one generation behind as parents. We live one generation behind because we don't really understand that the newer generation is facing issues and challenges and maybe even cultural changes that we are not prepared for. But that's the way humanity is, and you're not going to stop it. One thing that you're never going to do is stop humanity from moving forward, whether in a positive or negative way. You're not going to do it. And second thing you're not going to do is take the human instinct out of someone, right? The don't do it because I told you so. No, you're not supposed to do that, or you can't do that because we didn't do it back then like that. Or no, you can't, whatever it may be. You're not going to stop a teenage kid from being sexually aroused at whatever he's sexually aroused at. You can't stop a teenage kid from having feelings, towards the opposite sex, so towards the same sex, from wanting to fall in love, from, having the desire to have sex. You can't just tell your kid you can't do that.
I don't care what religion anybody is. There's nothing that constitutionalizes saying that someone is in the wrong for feeling something.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot control that. They can't. There's nothing. It doesn't matter how strict your religion is. If your child says that they feel something, you're not going to punish them for the way they feel, because that's like me punishing you for having a, house with that's colored blue. Like that, like you can't control that. It's not controllable. The way someone feels is not if you're being punished for the way that you feel. I mean, and they wonder why their kids go and jump off bridges.
Mm-hmm.
It's like because they feel like everything in life is their fault. And like you said, everybody's gonna grow up and they're gonna have that mentality. They're gonna have the mentality that everything that they do, everything that they feel is on them, and that they should feel ashamed of it. And I really feel bad for people who have to live like that. And I'm not putting all the blame on religions, but that's mainly where you hear a lot of those stories is my parents are super Christian, my parents are they're extremists, they're on one really big side of the spectrum, and I came out to my parents and they said that I was wrong and that that's against the Bible. And if you have really homophobic parents and you're living like your feelings are you should be punished for them, it's your fault, it's like you can't live like that, man. That's a terrible way to live.
Yeah. So, in conclusion, and I wanted to say this because I think it's important to say it. Throughout everything, you have been an amazing son, an amazing child. I don't think I've ever had to even talk to you hard about anything because we've always figured it out. Like it has never been like, why did you do that? We've always gone to the source. You've been open with your feelings. You've been open with your issues. So I know I speak for not only myself, but for your grandparents, for your mom, for your stepdad. We're really proud of you. We're really proud of the person that you are, the human being that you are, the curious soul that you have, and your search for not only success, but your creativeness and your outlook on life and everything else. And I think that, yes, we deserve some credit for that because obviously it's nature and nurture. We still don't know what's stronger, but that all comes within you as well. And we definitely appreciate the way you are, and we hope that, you continue that way whenever you grow up and don't love us anymore. So thank you for that.
Later in the podcast, you're going to be like, dude, why would you say that? You're such an idiot. You always make these stupid decisions, Samuel. What's going on here, man? Gay idiot? What's going on here?
Wow.
So just a heads up, that's what's going to happen later on in the podcast. But I appreciate it for now. I'll take all the wins I can get.
Let's talk about anxiety for a second.
Yes, I have plenty of anxiety right now. I feel very uncomfortable.
It's impossible. I don't remember a time when I was between 14 and 18 years old that I wasn't anxious about something. It's just one of those times where you're growing up, you're becoming what you are. There's 1,000 things going around you. You don't even understand the world yet. You have all this pressure from all different sides. You might have parents that don't understand you. It's probably the and I say this because I went through it, right? And I see kids going through it. But it's probably one of the most challenging times a human being can have in their lives. It shapes who you are for the rest of your life. And we're living, especially now in 2020, not only are we having all these personal issues, the world is having all these issues, and it seems like there's no escape from anywhere. How do we deal with that? How do we wake up every day and not feel like we're going to die? Because that's what anxiety makes us believe, right? It's the worst thing. Like, out of all the things that may happen, the one thing that it's going to happen is the very worst. Or whether that's true or not, that's what you believe, right? So how does a teenage kid in a life where his parents don't understand him. He has pressure from school. He's getting bullied. Nothing seems to be going right. He has no friends. Every morning he wakes up with that knot in his chest of, oh my God, I don't even want to face the day. I just want to get away. How does one deal with that effectively?
I would say get bitten by a radioactive spider and then put on a mask and defend New York City.
That's bullcrap, man. Spider-Man has more anxiety than anybody else, dog.
Honestly, yeah. I mean, it's not really an escape of anxiety, but that's probably the most logical next part of that story. So that's what I would do if I was that person. Unfortunately, I'm not. But if I was, it's definitely what I would do. What would you do if you were in that situation?
We already talked about this, and I have been in that situation, and I still am. I'm a generally anxious person. That's why I got in trouble, because I got prescribed medication for anxiety, and I had never. Looking back, I don't think I had ever not been anxious since I can recall, like back in kindergarten. I was an only child. I was religiously just put in a cage. I had no friends. I had no interaction, mostly with kids my age. So just leaving my house, man, was a whole new world. But not like that in the scary kind of, in the scary sense. I was anxious to talk to other kids. I didn't know how to play with other kids. And I grew up like that. And you hit 14, you hit 15 years old, and all of a sudden, it starts getting even more real. I came to a different country. And all of a sudden, this doctor goes, man, you're really anxious. Take this. And for the first time in your life, you feel like a normal human being. You're like, oh, so this is what it's like to feel normal. And it creates a problem, because I wanted to feel like that all the time, and you can't. You have to be realistic. You just can't feel not anxious all the time. Anxiety is necessary, right? Anxiety, in a normal way, it's this one thing that's tugging at you. Go, hey man, something's wrong here. Can we figure this out? And sometimes when a lot of things go wrong, then our brains start to believe that everything is going wrong, and that's where severe anxiety comes from, PTSD and all that kind of crazy stuff. But there is no magic bullet, right? You have to understand that it takes work. It takes effort, just like working out. You have to understand yourself from the very beginning, going, all right, what are my anxieties and why am I anxious about them? And then you have to realistically say, how realistic is this fear that I have? How probable is it that's going to happen? And I don't know the exact numbers, but when I went through not a rehab, it was more like a group chat kind of thing for people that had depression and anxiety. And I think it was, I want to say 30% of the things that we're anxious about actually come true. That's the statistic.
30%?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 30%. It's probably, I don't know. I'd like to think it's less.
It could be. I gotta look it up. I don't know. Hold on, let me see.
I'm probably anxious about something different every single day. So that's 365 different things a year. And probably about 2 bad things happen to me every year. So and I'm talking really bad things. I'm not talking getting a bad grade on a test, missing the bus. Those are just everyday bad things. That's just unfortunate. I'm talking bad things
yeah, but it's unfortunate,
really
but
things.
If they make you anxious, right? Like that, and that's what we're talking about, like being able to realistically say, is what's making me anxious legitimate? Okay, what percent of worries came true? Well, as it turns out, that in all likelihood, totally made up 90% number isn't far off. On average, 91.39% of participants' worries did not come true. Only 8.61% of their worries did come true.
Only 8%, you said?
8.61%.
8.61%. Yeah, I think it's probably around that. It's one of those things where it's like your mind kind of travels, like time travels into the future, and you're like you live in like this constant fear, like, am I doing something right now that could potentially avoid the catastrophe of my life in a couple weeks? And it's like, you can't live like that. Unfortunately, a lot of people do. And it's like, you wake up and you're like, you feel like you're missing just that one piece of the puzzle that you need to stop something that you don't want to happen from happening. But most of the time, like, you either can't avoid it, it's either unavoidable. You're either anxious about one of two things: either something that's unavoidable, something that's going to happen, something that is uncontrollable, or something that is controllable and you're doing a fine job at controlling, but you feel like there's something that you could be doing more. So it's like, you have to first of all identify, is this controllable or is this going to happen? Should I just tackle my anxiety of it happening, or should I realize that it's most likely not gonna happen? Because it's one of those two things. It's either most likely not gonna happen and you're just stressing about, frankly, nothing, wasting time being stressed about something that's not gonna happen, most likely, or you're wasting your time, you're wasting your energy stressing about something that you can't affect. It's going to happen. You are wasting your stress, you're wasting that energy, like, and you're not going to change anything because of it. It's not doing any good for you. It's actually doing the opposite.
Right, but you know all this, but yet, when the time comes and the anxiety shows up,
you forget about all. You can't control it.
So it's not logical, right?
100%.
Because when you're in a logical state, you can say this is dumb. But when it actually hits you, because it's a chemical state, it's a learned state, of your body getting prepared. Something's gonna happen, right? Because anxiety, right? We come from hunter-gatherers, and they were out there, and if an animal was chasing them, you have to get that adrenaline of like, I have to protect myself, right? It's a defense mechanism. Your body gets ready for battle. That's why when you get anxious, your heart starts beating faster. Sometimes you get sweaty and you feel like on edge because your body's saying something bad's about to happen, and we gotta get all hands on deck, right? We gotta get ready for what's gonna happen. Get the adrenaline going. So if we have to run and a lion is chasing us, we have to have all the strength. But then nothing happens, and all that energy is built up in you, and you feel like you're falling off a bridge. So how do you train your body to not have that response to what's going on?
You have to start realizing that the world around you is not currently on fire. That is, unless you're in California.
Yes.
Unless you're in California, you have to accept the fact that the world is not crumbling, the world is not on fire. What you think is happening is not happening, and you have to be in the now. Anxiety is 100%. What are you looking at? Anxiety is 100%, not 99, not 99.9. Anxiety is 100% about the future, about something that's not currently happening. If I'm anxious, like I get anxious sometimes because
all the time.
Okay, let's talk about something that somebody could probably relate to, especially my age. If you're taking a math test, right? You're not anxious because you're taking that math test. You're anxious that you're not doing well on that math test, which will result in you getting a bad grade later. Right? So you see how there's no situation where you can be anxious in the now. You can be having a panic attack because something is physically attacking you or something is going bad right now. which is possible, but you have to even think, like, even in those situations, what are you really worried about? Are you worried about, you know, are you worried about what's happening right now, or are you worried about what's to come, what this is going to cause? So if you're taking a math test and you're sweating, your palms are sweating, you're super nervous, you're not nervous because you're bubbling in answers. You're just nervous that you think that you're bubbling in the wrong answers, and that will result in getting a bad grade later, which might result in you not getting accepted into the college that you want, and that will result in you living on the side of the road. And it's like you play this whole situation in your mind that's not happening right now, and you have to be like, okay, stop, because now you're apparently a time traveler who's in the future, and you're living that situation now, and you're causing anxiety over something that's not gonna happen most likely. And if it does, then you have to worry about it when it does happen. You don't have to worry about it 10 years in advance. You know what I mean? It's like anxiety is 100% about what you think is going to happen in the future, and it's 0% about being in the now. And if you are in the now, like I said, there's a good chance that you're thinking that there's something that you could be doing more, that you're not thoroughly avoiding what's going to happen in the future.
And the most important thing is that even you realizing all this and knowing that it's actually true, it's not going to avoid you becoming anxious in the future. It's not. The body and the mind are flexible, but they're like trained puppies, right? Or untrained sometimes. And you don't train an animal in a day. And unfortunately, whether you want to believe it or not, our biology suggests strongly that we're animals. And you have to work at it every day. You cannot avoid the anxiety. You have to learn how to deal with the anxiety and how to bring down the anxiety. I think that, a lot of people don't, like myself, and I had to learn this, we don't want to be anxious. Right, we want to avoid that anxiety at all costs. That's the wrong way to go about it, for what I've learned. The way to go about it is to legitimize the anxiety, recognize when you're being anxious, understand why, and then take action towards that anxiety and bring it down, and teach your mind not to be anxious over time about certain things. But it takes time. It takes effort. You just can't be like, oh my God, I'm so anxious, I hate this, and not study yourself and not ponder upon what's going on and why and how do I fix it, in a calm manner. And then, there's all types of breathing exercises that you can do. There's all types of meditation, which I've told you 100 times that it's good, that you can do. And all this stuff takes practice, but it works. It's been proven to work for hundreds of years, and there's also natural supplements that you can take. Like, I love L-theanine. It's a very, very good supplement that you can take if you take it on a daily basis to bring yourself back to a normal state, or at least be a calm state. So many things that you can do naturally and within yourself to be able to feel better. But it's like me going to the gym. And I used to do this when I was a kid, right? I used to work out when I was 15, 16 years old in front of a mirror, and I would work out for 2 days, and I'll be like, why am I not a bodybuilder yet? Like, what's happening? I did 10 push-ups and 6, dumbbell reps. What's going on here? It takes time. And we don't want to wait. It sucks so bad that you don't want to wait. You just want to get rid of it. But unfortunately, that's not the way life is for anything. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes effort. That's all I got.
Patience is probably the most important thing, the most important quality that somebody can have, especially, like you said, when it comes to wanting to grow as a person. And it's like, and I think a lot of people can probably relate to what you said about working out, especially. It's like, if you're going to work out and you're going to stop after a week, and that's why I tell people who are trying to get on the grind of working out, I'm like, stop measuring your progress like weekly. Start measuring it like monthly, because you're gonna get a lot more motivated when you see the actual results. If somebody's looking at 10 different pictures of themselves and they're like, I look the same in all these pictures, you're gonna get unmotivated. You're gonna not be as motivated as you would be if you're scrolling through pictures of you every month or every 3 months, and you're like, dang, I'm looking like a lot bigger in this picture than I am in the last picture. And then you're going to continue to be motivated. Also, it just keeps you doing it in that interval of taking pictures or however you're measuring your progress. And it's like, and it keeps you motivated to like continue on, because a lot of people, maybe they don't measure their progress. They're only measuring it by looking at themselves or weighing themselves, and they're doing it, say, every day or every week, and they're like, they don't have like an incentive of getting to the end, getting to that checkpoint, really. You know what I mean? It's like, if you measure yourself, and I'm currently, or I was 120 pounds when I started working out. If I measure my weight every single day, I'm just like, I'm going to lose motivation like that. And it comes to the same thing when you're dealing with anxiety. If you meditate once and you're like, I'm still anxious, you just stop meditating, then it's like, you have to look back like 3 years ago and be like, oh, I'm a lot better than I was 3 years ago. And that's how you stay motivated to continue whatever you're doing. So that's all I got on that.
Dude, I had an epiphany last night. And it has to do with this a little bit. What do you think? How much free will do you think we have?
0%.
I tend to agree with that. And I've been struggling with it for a while, because I'm like, man, are we just like machines that pretend to have dominion over themselves, but they really don't? And, we've always talked about the people that, like, they're really nice people and have great lives, and then they get in an accident and they get brain damage and they become completely different people. So it's like, what kind of decision did they have? What kind of power do they have over that if their brain structure changes, right? If their chemicals change and the way they can access information change, they change as people. So where is the free will in that? Or, you get people that are, born to abusive parents, or like have really bad childhoods, or, whatever it may be, it shapes who they become in life. And I know a lot of people have a really hard time believing that. And I do as well, because we want to feel like we're in control of our lives, but we also have to understand and accept that we might not be in as much control as we think we are, because we are chemical structures, right? Our mind works off of chemical. That's why when you drink coffee, you feel hyper, you feel excited. When you drink alcohol, even your decision and your judgment capabilities change, simply because of the chemicals that you're putting inside your head. So what kind of decision ability do you really have when the changes in chemicals in your brain completely affect your personality, what you do, how you act, what you say, how risky you become, how much power do you have over that? And then I had this epiphany yesterday, and I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can to see if you agree with this. Most of our decisions, do you know how many decisions we make in a day?
426.
On average, we make 35,000 decisions every single day.
That was close enough.
Pretty close.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Most of those decisions are subconscious, right? Like when you're driving, or when you decide to put the keys somewhere. That's why sometimes you can't find your keys, because you subconsciously dropped them somewhere and now you don't remember where they are anymore. Those are things that the conscious mind has nothing to do with it. Nothing. Not free will, nor anything. Most of our decisions are learned behaviors that we don't think about, or already come with the package since we're born. And then I was like, well, why are we conscious then? Like, why is a part of us conscious? And then it hit me, dog. I was like, oh, wait, we don't control our decisions, but the conscious part of us is there to train ourselves to make the right subconscious decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So even though we have no control over the decisions we make on a daily basis, we can influence consciously those subconscious decisions by doing certain things. So for example, we were talking about meditating. If you consciously train yourself to meditate, you are subconsciously going to become a more peaceful person. You're going to be less anxious. You're going to probably make better decisions. You're going to look at the world a different way. Those are all subconscious things that were influenced by your conscious decision of doing that every day.
Makes sense. Well, I'll do you one better. I believe, and I don't even want to say the word believe. I know that, okay, the universe, right? And I don't mean just the observable universe. I don't even mean the universe that we live in. I mean everything that exists ever. Splat. It is one moment. One moment. It's a fraction. It's not even. No, it's not. It's like time doesn't even exist. It's just one moment. It's this point, and it just boom started existing, but it didn't because it's infinite. It's just it never. Think about if you were to just freeze time and time were to just stop in one moment. The universe just boom, and everything every decision that we will ever make, everything that will ever happen is all there. It exists in one continuous moment. The way that we perceive time in our dimension is forward, right? We perceive time, we perceive this one moment from beginning to end. But that's not the way time moves. Time doesn't move at all. It just exists. And everything in the universe exists somewhere. What I'm gonna do in 5 seconds exists somewhere. It already exists in the universe. And what I'm gonna do 25 years from now already exists in the universe. Everything that will ever happen and everything that has ever happened all exists in the same moment. The way we perceive it is just different. Is just from beginning to end. We just perceive time forward, right? So what I'm getting at is that everything that we will ever do exists already on a different realm, kind of, than the one that we're currently on. So every decision that you'll ever make, it's already laid out. It's already there. You're not going to change it. It's already it already exists. Except there's an infinite amount of universes, different ones, where you might do something slightly different. So a lot of people think of it as like, okay, you're going on this line, and then you make a decision and the line splits, and now there's two different universes where you made this decision or you made this decision. But it's not like that. There's an infinite amount of different lines where you make different decisions in a different sequence, except when you're born, the line that you are gonna be on, it's already decided. Does that make any sense? So like you're born, and the line that you're gonna take, the sequence of decisions that you're gonna take is already laid out. It already exists. Now you just have to sit back and live it. That's it. There's nothing you can do to change it. And then next to you in a different dimension, a different universe, there's the exact same life, except one day, instead of saying the word "duh," you stumbled a little bit. And everything before and after that is exactly the same. And next to that universe, everything is the same, except your dying words are a little bit different. And it's like, as soon as you're born, you have this life, which is already finished. Like, that life already exists from beginning to end. You just have to sit there and perceive it from beginning to end.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So what's the purpose then of attempting to grow and get better as a human being or whatever, or changing yourself or being successful or putting effort into whatever if everything's already laid out?
Because no matter what, because you're gonna make that decision no matter what. Like I can sit here and tell you that every decision that you're ever gonna make is already laid out, and it's not gonna change anything. You're gonna continue to live your life, and you're gonna make whatever decision, because at the end of the day, you can't get out of your mind and live in a different whatever. So to answer your question, I understand your question. Your question is, if I know that every decision that I'm ever going to make is already decided, I don't really have to put in the effort. I just have to sit back and relax and enjoy it. But it's not like that. You have to almost decide what reality you're going to live in. But you have to
okay,
understand.
so let's say that the universe, every universe is a lane, right? And this unlimited freeway that we're all riding on, and every universe is a lane where you make a different decision, and you are driving the car, right? What if you're driving on this lane, but you can actually, by making a decision, turn into the middle lane, because that's what what you think or what you subconsciously believe, and then that lane takes you into a completely set of choices, of future choices, and when you hit those future choices, you can say, okay, I'm going to go back into this lane, or I'm going to go 3 lanes to the right and go into that universe where all sets of decisions are completely different.
100%. And you're 100% right. You don't happen to have like a piece of paper or anything? Whatever. I'll explain it. So I want you to imagine you have 4 lanes of traffic, right? And I want you to imagine there's a red car, which is you. And I want you to imagine that wherever that red car goes, there's a yellow line that trails behind it. If you're driving in this lane and you decide that you want to go to the right lane because that changes your direction, that changes where you're going, and you're like, I want to go there. So now imagine that red car switches lanes, and now it's in this lane. And so now you have this yellow line that is going in this lane, but then it switches to this lane. And then what if now you're like, well, I want to go into the lane farthest to the left. So then the car, it switches 2 lanes and it goes to the left. Now you have to imagine that yellow line goes into this lane and then it goes all the way back into this lane. And say that red car continues to change paths. It continues to make decisions of what lanes to go in. Now imagine that yellow line all the way down until the end of the road. That yellow line, when you were born, it already existed. It already was laid out. You just don't see it. So as you make decisions to travel into different universes of you make that decision, that line that you took, no matter what you do, as soon as you were born, that line that you took, those lanes that you went into at what time, that was already decided. You don't know it was because you are the one who thinks that you're making the decisions, but that was already laid out for you. It's like but we can't think of it as like following it, because we have to make those decisions. So if I'm driving and I know that whatever my next move has already been decided in the grand scheme of things, that's not going to stop me from being like, well, I want to do that. I'm going to switch into the right lane. And then once I switch into the right lane, the fact that I did that is already behind me, right? Because it already exists in my memories. It already exists in the past. But in the grand scheme of things, the universe exists in the same moment. So that decision that you made, it already existed way before you made it. You just didn't know that you were going to make it. And that's not going to stop somebody from making that decision. So in a sense, you have to make your reality, but also understand that your reality is kind of already made. Now you just have to kind of live it. So if I decide that I want to start working out every Monday and Wednesday to start getting a little bit bigger, then I'm going to start doing it. But then 10 years later, when I'm jacked, I have to understand that I was never not going to make that decision. I'll give a example for you. There's some people who suffer from imposter syndrome, who were supposed to get on the flight that would crash into the Twin Towers. So they have imposter syndrome. They're like, I was going to get on that flight. Like, I was supposed to be on that flight, and I didn't get on, and now it spared my life. And I feel like, why me? Like, why did I live and the other 100 people who went on the flight didn't? And people tell them all the time, you have to understand, you were never going to get on that flight. You were never going to get on that flight. There was, in a different universe, yeah, in a different universe, I was going to get on that flight. In a different universe, you were going to get on that flight. But we didn't, and we were never going to, because we live in this dimension where all our decisions already exist. So those people who are like, I was going to get on that flight, why didn't I die? Why did somebody else's father, brother, friend die, and I didn't? You have to understand, those people, no matter how close they got, were never going to get on that flight. Their fate just didn't, it wasn't in their future. That universe that they're living in, it just didn't, that's not what was going to happen for them. And they have to understand that. And that's how we're all living. If I decide in 5 seconds to pick up that Xbox controller, I was always, everything that I ever did in my life was always going to lead up to me doing that. And if I don't, then I was never going to. You know what I mean? I understand it in my head, but I don't know if I'm making sense verbally.
And that, my friends, is how existential crisis begins. And you're yours. A lot of things, man. Damn, we're already on an hour. Well, we want to hear your feedback in regards to this new show that we're attempting to do here. What do you guys think? Do you want to see more? I think we're probably going to make a show every 2 weeks, maybe a couple of shows a month of this new format that we're trying out. You have a website. You have some things that you want to share with the world, that you've always wanted to share with the world, that you didn't decide to share with the world, but it was already there.
It's already there. It already existed. Yeah, I'm on a little bit of a hiatus right now. But
you still have a website.
But I have a website, spacemusics.com, spacemusics with an X. I don't want to do any shameless plugs, but go follow my Instagram. That was actually kind of a shameless plug. Hey, man, I was always going to do that, so it's already decided.
Yeah. Even the cringy parts have already been decided, so I can't do anything about that.
Yeah, so instead of dreading something that you did 10 years ago, just dread something that you're going to do in 10 years. No, it already exists.
I got a brand new website, jchirino.com, like my name. It still doesn't have all my work in there. It's a work in progress, but you can find The Flawed Ones there, which is my first book. I'm working on a second project now that actually I wanted to talk to you about. We'll leave it for the next show. I'm having a little bit of problem getting this thing out into the world because of everything that's going on in 2020. And that's, if you want to know more about that, check out the Wise Distortion podcast, episode 15, where I kind of talk about it. It's enraging, really. It's really upsetting. It's really frustrating. It makes no sense. But it was always supposed to happen, I guess. So it's we just have to deal with it.
I just want to let you know in advance, this podcast is going to be extremely hard to edit because I've been touching my microphone the entire time. So I hope that you can do something about that. We'll fix it in post, guys. All right? It was always supposed to happen. That should be the name of this podcast. Always supposed to happen. This podcast was always going to be recorded, guys. In a different universe, it wasn't. But in ours, it was.
In a different universe, this podcast already has 1 million followers. So why not on this one? You know what I'm saying?
Hey, man, it already exists. We just have to live it.
All right, friends. Thank you again. My name is Jay Chirino. This is Space. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want. Check out our websites. But more importantly, come back next time where we'll have another show and talk about very, very interesting stuff. And continue your existential crisis going. Have a good one.